All right. So let's get started, everyone. It looks like besides ARTPARK attendees, looks like we have about 40, we have 45 people. Uh, Today's agenda is first quickly an intro to ARTPARK, uh, our approach and model for venture building, uh, key dates for the application process, and Q&A on the application process itself. Right. So ARTPARK is actually a nonprofit organization created by the Institute of Science to build India's next generation AI and robotics innovators and innovations for economy, society, and sovereignty. We work very closely across ecosystems. Many of you might have often heard of the so-called triple helix model, which is easier to mention, much more difficult to pull off. And I think core to our success has been being able to pull this off pretty well. Working closely, of course, we are born out of research and academia, but a lot of the team members' DNA comes from corporates and startups. And we create startups, we work with startups, we work with corporates as co-innovators. And of course, government and nonprofits are key supporters of our work, right? What do we do? In a nutshell, we are a venture builder focused on robotics and AI. We find and develop innovators such as you, and we help them build innovations that we help become really for profit or non-profit ventures. Right. So that is essentially in a nutshell. And another way to represent that is this. We start with talent and early stage technologies. Typically, I would say in the lab or just after lab kind of stage, TRL 3 to 4, perhaps. Uh, they start as technology innovators in residence, uh, co-innovate with customers and find their product market fit, and ultimately get spun out as ventures, right? Uh, there's a lot of focus on startups, of course, but we also spin out social innovations or digital public goods, right? And we are able to do this because one, there's a core team with the exposure, mindset, and methodology. Uh, we have deep touch venture building experience and networks and ability to bring investments ourselves as well as through our partners. Uh, and Not at all the least, but one of the key attractions is also that we have a facility really well suited for robotics and AI, right? And what have we accomplished so far? Built 34 starters. We have supported under 40 plus, but without actual investment. It's more of a typical lighter touch incubation support. So I'm not counting them here. For 34 startups, we have helped build and invest them really from the ground up. Uh, 77 technologies, more than half of which have been commercialized. Typical TRL journey starts at little around three to four, and so far they have reached between 6 and 7. Uh, we look to support startups over 2 to 4 years of time, um, and that's because it's really difficult to build something just in, let's say, 3 months or 6 months. We realize that, right? And valuation of the startups we've built so far is about, 1,400 crores, right? So talent, go to market collaborations, co-innovation from day one, not after you reach TRL 6. Infra space that has things like prototyping and testing for hardware, good network of prototyping partners, supply network, if you would, pilot manufacturing, 5G test bed, GPU cluster, right? And of course, we bring in capital from various sources to make all this happen. I'll just share one example of something very complex we built from scratch. Comrado, as you see, this is this is actually uh, their room that often becomes clean room. In addition to this, they have substantial space. You're looking at a 4.5 meter wingspan hybrid vertical takeoff and landing drone that was built from scratch at ARTPA, right? And we did this by attracting Ansar, who, from being, uh, an innovator in residence, went on to become a startup founder. This is a drone that flies at 21,000 feet, endurance of 6 hours plus 150 kilometers range, hybrid as in both internal combustion engine as well as battery pack, right? So, so that's what we offer, a place where you can come in with core technical expertise and go out with fairly complex systems or even core components, both hardware and software, right? Uh, so there was a big vision, which is to create a large-scale autonomous aircraft. The initial idea was really sparked by Professor Suresh Sundaram. Then, as we really looked into it, there was a lot of market pull from a very different angle than what we initially thought. This is not at all uncommon for folks starting with the technology, right? Because you think you're going to be in market A, but you realize that really the pull is in market B, and you got to figure out what you want to do, right? And ultimately, that solidified into this flagship product called Virat, which is the hybrid VTOL drone. Uh, they work very closely with their customers across different sector, and today not only do they have customers but also well in demand for follow-on funding from investors, right? So this is roughly uh, the sort of journey. Now, how does that journey start here with the Technology Innovators in Residence program? We are looking for folks who are not yet a startup. We are looking for deep technical expertise. And the key milestones to keep in mind is May 22nd deadline that is really going to be upon us. We expect to start the residency itself sometime in July timeframe. And ultimately, from there, you'll have 3 to 6 months to be at ARTPARK, be funded up to 25 lakhs, and ultimately get spun out as a startup, of course, subject to criteria and evaluations at that point of time, right? So with that, let me kind of just pause for a moment and see if uh, any questions are coming on the chat here. I asked Nirav to help me see if there are any questions to answer yet. Else, I'll go to the application process itself.
Okay, Abhinav is asking if the intake would be once a year or we'll have a follow-on intake later in the year.
We tend to play by ear, Abhinav, because we know that innovators do not become available just once a year. A lot of it's also, quite frankly, been dependent on our funding and support we are able to drum up. So we'll do at least once a year. We are hoping to actually recruit a decent cohort at this time, but whether we would take others later on the year would depend on how the year goes, right? That's the honest answer.
Raghu, Kavya is asking if there'll be a stipend during the initial TIR period or any other
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea is not so much. What we do is we make a 25 lakh expense account available to you, right? You may start as an individual, or you may start with up to two other, co-founders or founding team members if you would like. Part of that would be your stipends. How much that stipend needs to be really is a bit of a conversation between us and you. We want to be fair, but at the same time, we want folks to generally realize that this is not. No one should be attracted for the stipend, right? This is just paying you for a bit of your opportunity cost, and hopefully you use most of the money to perhaps build your first whiz-bang prototype, or do customer pilots, or do a lot of market research. And all those things can be expensive. So yes, stipends can and are a part of this, but we hope you won't spend all of it just on stipends. Certainly not paying 25 lakhs over 6 months. That would be an amazing stipend. Right.
So Raghu, you in a way answered Shivan's question also, which was how can you spend 25 lakhs of money or grant which you allocate? Shivam, that includes everything. It's on to you how you spend it. Kshitij asks, can it be individual who can apply or does he need a team?
Absolutely, individuals can totally apply. We are not a place that kind of says, and the whole point of a pre-startup stage that we realize you are early in your discovery. We want to know that you have deep, world-beating technical expertise in some area, and we also want to know that that technical expertise has broad applicability to some real problems, right? Uh, Beyond that, we don't say you need to have everything. If you have one or two team members, that's great. If you don't have, that's also okay, right? The idea is to go through that journey of discovery and hopefully even attract founders.
Perfect. Well, there's someone known as Shal. I don't know if that's a real name, but it says that person says, they need information about IP, right? How would it be shared or how would it be managed and what everything about IP, right?
Yeah, sure. See, remember when you come in as a technology innovator in residence, you're essentially a consultant to ARTPARK. That's how we'll end up paying you and making expense accounts available, right? We are not paying the money out to an individual, right? That's not what we are doing, right? So what that means is the background IP you come in with belongs to you. The foreground IP that you create will be held at Art Park with you as the inventor. But when you create the startup, that IP will be assigned to you exclusively, right? That's the idea.
Perfect. Raghu, the other person, Abhinav asks if it is purely a grant or would they be required to give out some equity in return for the grant?
See, right now the way we are thinking is we are trying to make your first uh, 3 to 6 months a time when you can like jump 2 feet in and take the dive, right? So you will have a period of time there for this initial 25 lakhs where we are saying is really zero equity. But if you were to spin out a startup, right, we would have a stake in that company, right? And that would also depend on how much of a first check we write, how long you will stay on with us, etc. Right? So that tends to be a bit of a case-to-case basis because not all companies get an equal check, right? But ultimately, the point is, this is not, yeah, this is absolutely not a charity model to startups. Using taxpayer money to fund startups uh, is a concept that the government has come up with in order to be able to get India to build certain types of deep technologies, right? But that doesn't mean we can just distribute the money and not get anything back. For the first 25 lakhs, no strings attached. But if you're going to use that technology to ultimately start a company, we would take an equity stake in that, right? And that would depend on how much money we give as follow-on, etc. You would also have to go through some process evaluations committees to reach that stage,
Yeah,
right?
Raghu,
This is not unlike, yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
just add to that, right? So, everyone, we have two parts to the puzzle, right? One is a TIR process where you are using the money to de-risk certain, things you have not figured out as yet. And eventually, we want you to be a venture of your own, which not only allows us to put money in it, but also others to come in, all VCs or other investors to actually come in and, treat you as a startup. So then you have strategic autonomy, but yes, it's then a financial deal. Be it ARTPARK or any other investor coming in.
Yeah. Couple of questions here about the spaces. See, we are broadly AI, robotics, autonomous systems. We are sector agnostic, really. In that way, we think of these as horizontals. That said, I will also say that typically we've had some focus areas, and those focus areas tended to be mobility, For example, drones is an example of mobility, right? Space, uh, defense, aerospace is a big overlap. Advanced manufacturing, sorry, how could I forget that? Medical technologies, right? So these are all currently represented in our portfolio, and we will continue to support these spaces, right? Let's see what other questions are there. Do
Raghu,
we need
I'll
proof of
capture that.
technology?
Jitin is asking, is it possible for startups who are already getting grants from somewhere else to also apply?
They should ideally be applying into see this is meant as a pre-startup phase, right? And soon we'll be launching a startup focused program, uh, and that would be the right one perhaps for you to apply, right? Would that make sense, Nirav?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also another question: does the
Yeah.
idea need to be?
Snehashish is next asking, does the idea need to be validated in a lab, or it can just be an own idea which still is requiring some validation and testing?
See, no one stops anyone from applying, right? Anyone can apply, right? You can apply with just an idea. So but the point is, if anyone has opened the application process, and Nirav, it may be useful to pull up the document as we speak, right? We'll walk them through that a little bit. Uh, Folks who probably have a lab prototype, when we say lab prototype, we don't mean some academic lab or something like that, right? It could be that, but it could be you're just building this in your garage or in your hostel room. That's perfectly fine. But the idea is we want folks who haven't. Ideally, we want to attract builders and not just thinkers, right? So there is absolutely going to be a bias towards folks who have shown the ability to build. So, and that's, I think, is going to be natural. Remember, we are calling this technology innovators in residence.
Okay.
So, yeah, so while you can take a chance with just an idea, uh, perhaps this is just an idea, but perhaps you have past experience in an adjacent or very relevant technology space where you have built other things. It's perfectly fine to submit those as evidence of your ability to build deep tech stuff, right? In that particular area, even though that might not be the exact product you end up building.
Perfect.
Yes, Nirav?
Well, Nandagopan asks a very interesting and important question saying, if we are existing startup, can we still apply as a TIR?
If the answer to that is actually no, because you already have a startup, and if the idea is uh, the question, actually, I would pose the question back to you. If the idea of a TIR is to figure out what startup to build, and if you have already started, sounds like you might be better fit for a startup program.
Raghu, I'll just add to that, right? Look, many a time, some of you might just incorporate a startup on an idea, right? You might still be figuring out things, but you went ahead and you're just early to the curve and you launched a startup. So maybe that's where we give you two lenses. One is, yes, if you have a startup, we'll encourage you to, apply to the other program, which will give you strategic autonomy to drive things yourself. But at the same time, if whatever you're building is at a very early stage, at a TRL 3 level or something, where you feel there is enough, you still need to have certain roadmap to de-risk certain things before really convert it into a venture, then you can still apply for a TIR. But yeah, and that's where you'll have to wear both lens on where how mature is your product or
Yeah,
the.
at that time, you're applying as an individual, or a small, very small team of individuals. You're not applying as a startup, and we have there is no compulsion that we should back that existing startup, right?
So yeah, I think wear both lanes. If you're still very early to the game, you can apply for TIR, but that's where your individual capacity to do things would be measured over a startup, right? Okay. Moving on, Raghu, next person, Gopal asks, how would you really evaluate the technical expertise? That's like actually telling out, our entire rubric.
No, no. So it's, I mean, we have we will. we'll be relying on our extensive uh, technology and research networks to do that. That's why if you see go through the application process, and maybe Nirav, this is the right time to pull up the document, or should I try to pull up the document?
I have it ready. I thought I'll just go through the questions before I pull it up, but I can.
Maybe I think we may be able to preempt some of those questions if we go through the process, right? So let's come back to the questions after we go through that.
Okay, let me press it. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, I do you want me to just walk you through? So everyone just if you see the application questions also, right? We start with the problem statement and ask you questions around defining that problem statement to start with. And there are certain additional questions around knowing more about the problem statement just to encourage you to think a bit deep.
So Nirav, just sorry to interrupt. Section one is more of CV and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh, which actually, if you upload a CV, we are trying to parse as much as possible, so that we minimize your manual entry, but you will have a chance to review what we have passed from what we have taken from your CV and pre-filled. You will get to review that and say, no, this you did not, this is not exactly right. I want to modify it. You can do that. Then the section two is where really the meat starts. Back to you, Nirav.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Raghu. Well, in the second section, we generally start with, a typical pitch, how it would go. We start with defining the problem statement. And at the earlier stage, we ask you to define what problem you're really going after. And, define certain elements around, how big is the market and why now and all those things, which sort of link to the overall problem statement. You would have this template as a downloadable template, which you can fill and upload. And then once you define that, we ask you saying, how well do you know the problem, or do you think there is enough to be de-risked, before you actually just double down on the problem. Once you define the problem to the nth level and you have give us enough information, we get into the second part, which is thinking of what could be the potential early idea around how would you solve that problem, right? So we start talking of the solution, but it's still at a very high level, right? Where we ask you to first describe your solution. And hey, Manjit, can you just go on mute?
Can everyone please mute?
What are you giving me for my birthday?
Thanks. Okay, so then you move into defining your solution, and you generally try to show why the early idea which you're thinking about is a big idea, and the depth of that idea or the solution is what we are really looking for. Uh, Once you do that, because this is a technology solution which we're looking for, we ask you to define the technology behind it, right? And that's where we start asking you questions around, why it is a differentiated technology. At the same time, what sort of lab experiments you've ran, which sort of, makes you able to translate that technology into real world, right? Once you do that, we ask you if you have gathered some insights already, which makes you confident about the initial thinking or the idea or the solution, and start to ask you more questions on, how well do you know the technology and the technology depth, right? So when
Yeah. So Nirav, on this one, I'll say this is an optional question, but really what we are trying to get to is to see if you have deeply thought about and researched whatever niche or corner of technology that you say you are an expert in, right? And we would love to hear those rare insights from you that that potentially drive your approach, right? Yeah. Back to you, Nirav.
Yeah, but I think the question which someone asked around how do we measure technological depth, these are the questions which we ask you to, define certain elements of your technology. and see, how novel is your technology, and two, what experiments you have ran or certain ideas or insights which you have to back your technology, right? And that's where it is. And last is we want to just understand how you are thinking about taking this forward, right? So this is about if you come into a TIR program, what's your typical milestones you're tracking, what sort of de-risking you need to do, and getting some thoughts of how well you have thought through of what you need to achieve in the next 6 to 12 months to really help you to move through that funnel and ensure that you end the residency well, right? That gives us an ability to gauge how you are thinking about the problem, at the same time how we can help you in the process, right? So when it talks about your roadmap, it starts with how where in the journey you are, what are the technical hurdles which you want to overcome, or what you need to de-risk as a part of your TIR program, and certain key milestones which you want to look at and drive as you apply to this program and drive certain things, right? And finally, because we obviously want to ensure that you're successful, what specific things can we offer to you as a part of the program to make you successful is what we are asking you as a part of the thing, right? Finally, we just want to understand how do you really take past experiences, failures, and all other things. So we have an optional question which you can choose to answer or not. But we just want to know how you think about, various things when you hit or when you did similar programs or projects in the past. And the two next questions are all about knowing what you've done in the past and how did you really address a particular problem, which talks about, a significant research direction or a prototype which you built, as well as how did you manage a complex hardware software integration as a part of your journey. These are optional questions. Might not have a lot of weightage in your actual application, but yes, if you have certain viewpoints, it just helps us to know you better as a.
That said, I'll say, Nirav, if it comes to a wire between two candidates, the person who shows this additional spark obviously will get the edge, right?
Yeah, this is
Uh,
like a typical matchmaking. So if we know you better, we just can trust you better, right? So definitely, if you have something, I'll encourage you to answer all the questions, though some of them
yeah,
are optional, because it just gives us better view into what you really are about. It's not about your failures or your past, viewpoints or things which you did in the past, but it's just for us to know you better as an individual, to say if we can really do justice to your innovation and entrepreneurship journey, and would if you are deciding to spend significant amount of your life in the next 6 to 12 months with us, does that match really be fruitful and a win-win for both of us, right? So in a nutshell, that's
yeah,
what we both
yeah.
should.
This might be a start of actually many-year journey, right? Yeah, we do check-ins and evaluations every 3 months, but hopefully this is a longer journey, right? Nirav, do you have uh, we asked them to, besides the CV, we also asked them to upload. One is share links to your portfolio. You might have a website where you have documented your past work, or a Git or a Git repository, right? Or if you simply want to point us to a Google Drive folder where you have your publications, photos, videos. So there's opportunity in this application to do all of that, right? We just wanted to highlight some of the quote unquote text questions that are in here so that you get a sense for the application process. Back to Q&A, Nirav,
Okay,
also keeping
I
an eye on time.
yes, I will get into what Ashok is asking next is what is a typical tenure for which you'll provide the support, and it would be depending on what factors.
Yeah. So the typicals, see, what we said is we said 25 lakhs up to 6 months, right? If the money runs out, the money runs out, or the time runs out, right? That said, we will do a check-in at a 3 month period too, to see whether we actually continue. So you got to be making progress, sufficient progress every 3 months to keep going forward in the journey, right? Uh, and then from then, at that point, definitely at 6 month point, we'll definitely ask the question, hey, is this a team that's ready to become a startup or not? Right? And if so, you will get in front of, some committee pitch. There'll be a sort of the next level application process to actually get funded as a startup. Right? That's what the additional funding would look like. And that could, yeah, it doesn't mean you have to exit Art Park at that time, right? Either you spin up a startup and continue the journey or exit, I guess.
Perfect.
Right?
Well, the next person, Dinesh, asks if that you need to have some proof of work or
I
technology.
think we've already addressed this, right? Uh, uh, Ideally, yes, but let's say your idea differs from your past work, but that past work is related to this. You can say, I have this new idea, and I have this past work as evidence to show that I'm capable, right? Uh, then, next question.
How do you define deep tech? Which is
I will not try to define deep tech. I said we would be interested in AI, robotics, autonomous systems, and related technologies, and we will be looking for technical differentiation, right? In a way that's not easily repeatable, right? Deep tech is yes, it helps tell us. I mean, sometimes it's easier to say what it's not. If let's say it's just the e-commerce innovation and operational innovation, right? Then that will not probably fit.
yeah. Yeah, anything
Uh,
robotics and AI should be interesting for us in a way.
yeah. Robotics and AI, but with some deeper innovation besides just a wrapper on other models, right? So hopefully there is something clever about your engineering, something clever about your tech stack. You're leveraging some unique insight about what customers want that enables you to build technology in a way that is different from others,
Yeah.
right?
Perfect. Very linked question. Sudipta asks if we'll be supporting medtech startups, especially in
Yeah,
diagnostic.
medtech in AI and robotics.
Anything robotics and AI. So Sudipta, if that somewhere aligns with robotics or AI, we have.
Yeah, yeah. I also had a related question later. Someone talked about biotech process automation. Yes, we would be interested in that if there is a significant component of AI or robotics in that. And
Yeah.
when I say robotics, we just don't mean like robotic arm lifting things and things like that, right? We generally understand robotic as automation, right? And there's various types. If there is sort of sensing, intelligence, actuation, that's robotics.
Perfect. Well, Karthik asks about infrastructure, which we just covered. But Karthik, yes, the deep tech infrastructure, which is available to us, is available to all of you for free. And we continuously keep building it. So in fact, we are also building a 9-acre campus in future for robotics and AI in Bangalore. And all those facilities would be available to all our startups. Okay.
So examples of things are there is some hardware prototyping, CNC machines, clean rooms. It's a 5G test bed for those of you who need to test your autonomous systems, right? Uh, uh, there's a GPU cluster of H200s that will continue to grow. Um, so yeah, all of that is there. And of course, because now we have built certain number of startups, we will also try to leverage sort of the prototyping and manufacturing network that exists in Pina in our neighborhood, but also actually across India that our startups have built so far. All that we'll try to leverage for you.
Okay. Rakshit, is again a sort of a repeat question, but what TRL level do we back? And does it need to be validated in the lab? Rakshit, we need at least TRL 3 to be very frank. But that being said, if it's very differentiated, we are happy to look at a bit of earlier one also.
Yeah. Sometimes the TRL3 might be, maybe it's well known, maybe a concept is well known, so you don't necessarily need a prototype of this particular product, but you have access to something else you have done in the past. I think we've addressed this in a few different ways so far.
Okay. Muskan, I read your question. I didn't get it, but Raghu, if, happy if you can jump onto that.
Would a simulation of the topic be acceptable? Yeah, it might be. That said, everyone knows the sim to real gap, right? But if a concept is something that's simulated in the lab and you feel that that has a reasonable chance of translating into the real world, we are happy to look at that. Again, folks, I mean This is a very different type of application, as you might be realizing. What we see is it's not simply a scoring mechanism. We will pay close attention to what you're building and try to ask and consult with our technological experts and see if that makes sense.
Okay. I am skipping one question. Prakhar, you asked, can it be a GovTech project which is non-defense? In fact, we don't define ourselves close to only defense. We have a lot of verticals we back. And if it is robotics and AI, I'm happy to, look at it. We just need novel tech, right?
Yeah. We do a lot of defense, non-defense stuff. To give you examples, uh, we have a company that is building engineering design foundation scientific foundation models for engineering design, right? Could you use it for defense? Yes, you could use it, but quite honestly it's a broad engineering technology, right? uh, we also have folks who Twara is a company that built actuators and robotic arms, and now they have investment from Ace Designers, manufacturing equipment maker, right? Again, we we do not did not think of them as defense, but they have defense applicability, yes, right? So we absolutely do non-defense.
Prabhav, you asked if a biotech process automation unit would be qualifying for this. If there is robotics and AI, definitely yes. So we just need differentiated technology and something which overlaps with robotics and AI. We are happy to look at it, right? Uh, Kavya asked, is it possible to join other members to start up together? And can you share some stories of the past, right?
No,
Because
so you can come in, see, uh, that's happenstance, right? Or it's difficult to design that upfront. If you can certainly apply as a team along with your other co-innovators or potential co-founders. Uh, but after coming here, would we bring someone in hoping that we will pair them up with someone? That's not how we will select, right? Because then that's just too much left chance.
yeah,
It's entirely possible for two innovators in residence who join us separately to kind of find each other and say, hey, actually, what we can build together is going to be more powerful. We are not going to stand in the way of that, right? But yeah, we'll have to see. It doesn't, but then if they're going to work on a single thing, I don't think their budget will be 50 lakhs,
yeah. So
right?
Kavya,
So
also just to add, right, a lot of our startups started as a small team. I think, in fact, Raghu, correct me if I'm wrong, Twara was also a very small team initially, and Kaushik and all
yeah,
that.
Thwara were individuals that were innovators in residence, that went on to become a team, right? It does happen. But yeah,
Yeah, but as you come in and as you start de-risking your technology and as you start becoming more and more confident, you can also look outwards within the networks and all others, and you can find certain, technologists or co-founders along the way. All this time gives you is to work on certain things and de-risk it and be confident that you want to pursue it further, right? But nothing stops
yeah,
being an individual researcher.
yeah. I do want to generally mention that currently this particular call does have a bias against what I might say generalist business folks, right? We know that business folks are extremely important, but essentially in this particular call, we are looking for builders with deep technical expertise. And we do know that they need to find business product team members, which will help them do, right? But we are not going to choose, uh, just business folks with an idea in this call.
Raghu, Prajwal has a long question, but Prajwal, so I'll just take it up and answer. Prajwal, I see that you're more mature startup and you're looking for more support, more financial support than what TIR offers. There would be another process which we'll start, which is called more of a startup program, or what Raghu mentioned, where we'll push you to an investment committee to pitch and get you in. Do look out for our calls for that, and I think you'll be a better fit there, where your more mature startups would sort of go through a typical investment cycle journey, right? Okay. Chiranjeevi says, what if the idea doesn't have a hardware direction on day one?
That's okay. You don't. Uh, I just mentioned one of our startups that is building foundation models for engineering design, right? So that's not hardware, but we are looking for uh, what do you say, deeper technological innovation, even if it is just software, right? In this case, it would probably be AI.
Yeah, perfect. Shivan, your question is, can you add founders later on? Which is sort of repeat of what Kavya asked. Yes, you can. You can find people internally to work together as well as look outside and
Yeah, you can come and add others. You might come and see. You have, if you get selected, you will have a certain expense account, so to say, and you're totally at liberty to add other co-founders or other team members, right? Uh, Using that budget.
okay. Uh, okay.
And it can be up to 6 months. It doesn't have to be only 3 months. We are going to be making sure that when we go past the 3 month process, we'll have to ask, hey, which are the teams that have really made some progress versus which teams haven't made some progress, right? So um, do not assume 6 months by default if you haven't made progress.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Sudipta asks if they do medtech, would we give them access to medical facilities and patient data? I don't know how to answer that.
No, look, do not expect us to somehow. Could we make introductions? Yes, right. But it's not, medical data is not ours to share, right? We probably will help make some introductions for you if we find your needs to be credible and that we can get, I mean, that we feel confident enough to back you, right? As an institution, we'll do that, right? But we'll not be able to really guarantee that, right? We'll enable connections, but ultimately it will be up to those hospitals, etc., right? Uh, we have plenty of network in the space, right? In that people know us, they probably will take the request seriously if we introduce you. But at the same time, it's not like I'll be able to introduce you to 20 hospitals, right? I probably will be first comfortable introducing you to two or three places and see what the reaction is before we then put you forward to others.
Okay. Gopal, I am reading your question. What I understand is you're doing certain things and now you're trying to monetize individual components. Look, there are two, and let me dissect that question, right? Are you saying that, look, one is want to support early stage. So if you are maybe like TRL 6 or 7, maybe you might not get through. But we do not also, on the back of it, we do not define what business models you use. And in fact, TIR process in the 6 months, we want you to de-risk and understand what your market is and what business models you use, right? So we don't define what should be your business model and what will we support upfront. But at the same time, if you have a much mature company like at a TRL 7 level, we are not the best fit for you because we won't be able to add a lot of value to it, right? Okay. Raghu, ideas leveraging AI in fintech space.
Ideas leveraging AI in fintech space. See, again, it better be some deep technical innovation and not simply at a high level application layer, right? Uh, Fintech is not something that we have so far really backed. Um, so, see, we'll not reject any application outright, but we will ask whether we as ArtPark are able to add substantial muscle to your journey, right? If we are not able to do that, we'll not will probably not pick you. Not necessarily because your idea is bad or that you do not have technical expertise or something like that. It's because we may not be the right place to support your journey, right? And fintech so far we haven't really looked at it. But let's say there is some AI innovation at a foundational level, right? Then we can perhaps get behind you, right? Because those kind of deep tech networks at IISc and beyond we do have, right? And we do realize a lot of if you really are at a more foundational level, a lot of these ML techniques are not actually very sector dependent, right? But you will need the domain expertise in addition to the AI ML expertise to make a difference in that space. We will, since we are not sector experts for something like fintech, we will see whether there is actually an AI ML differentiation that you have, right? Long answer, but hopefully that gives you some nuance to how we think about this.
Yeah. Well, Raghu, Akshata is asking if they get selected, would they have to move to ARTPARK? Or they're based out of IIT Hyderabad, right?
See, we will have a general preference for why. Okay, first let me say, why do we prefer folks based at Art Park? It's because you're then in a vibrant ecosystem. Uh, there are a lot of undesigned but beneficial collisions that happen with any number of companies or investors, potential customers visiting, right? There's certain camaraderie and what do you say, momentum that comes with being in a set of people who are also aiming for the moon, right? For all these reasons, we do generally have a preference. We will have a bias for folks who can really leverage our ecosystem to the fullest, right? It's not just about the money, right? For that reasons, we will have a preference. That said, would we not look at someone who has an amazing idea but is not immediately able to move to Art Park? We will take a look, right?
But
Uh,
chances are that TIR process, we might have a lot of oversight and guidance, and we'll want to be a bit involved. So at least for a TIR process, we will like you to be here, right? Because that's where we both can know each other the best.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay. Archit, I'll come back to your question. I'll take some time to read it. Karthik says, if he is a registered company, would he apply as a individual or something, or he can apply as a company?
no, I thought we answered this
Oh,
question,
no. So,
right? We are
Raghu,
not backing.
basically asking that if he has a company, basically, is it a mandate to have a company before you apply?
No, no, this is actually pre-startup, right? This is actually meant to be for individuals. We are not giving out checks to companies. And yeah,
Okay. Archit is asking that he's somewhat similar. He's a solo founder, but he has a registered company and he has not taken any grants so far.
say that again.
He is a
Solo founder.
solo founder. He has a registered company and some bit of product, and he has not taken any grants.
Apply as an apply. My suggestion would be apply as an individual, right?
Yeah,
Right,
but
because you cannot apply as a startup in this case, right? And we are not writing a check to the startup.
yeah. So Archit, I think also this doesn't do justice on what maturity your product is. But
Yeah,
if you feel your product is somewhat more mature than TRL 4 or 5, then you could apply to a startup journey.
yeah. Then that would be a better fit for you,
Yeah,
right?
because reading your question, I don't understand at what maturity level you are. So, but happy to, do write to us if required, and we're happy to take a look. But see what gives you the best strengths. TIR gives you some room to de-risk certain things before you pitch to an IC. The startup program will force you to pitch to an IC immediately. So you have to
IC
take a
being investment committee,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
investment. So you would be having certain strategic autonomy if you pitch as a startup compared to a TIR. But that would be more rigorous process where you will be expected to know all your answers before you go to the IC, right? So you have to take a call on where in the maturity layer you are before you even go ahead and pitch, right? So happy to talk to you offline, but yeah, that's how lens you might want to wear before you go ahead. Okay. Yash says again an IP question. What defines a new IP? And what qualify like if I'm building a concept, I come in with where does the line get drawn? Basically, he's saying what's the line drawn? If he comes in with certain viewpoints, he builds on top of it. what is our IP versus his IP?
No, see, look, the moment you spend money to create some new technical artifacts, you will be doing that as consultant under ARTPARK umbrella, right? And our intent is to assign that to you when you spin out a startup, right? So remember, ultimately, our intent is to assign you the IP. The point is when we are writing you a free check or opening an expense account of 25 lakhs, right? Uh, like that's Yeah. There's no such thing as entirely free, right? When you create those technical artifacts and you're doing that using taxpayer money. Remember, this is all funded by Department of Science and Technology, right? So we need to get something in return. What we are hoping ultimately is that IP is worth something so that you spin out a startup, in which case we will invest and take some equity and in the process assign the IP to you.
Yeah. Yash, just to add to what Raghu said, right? Look, as we take money from DST and assign it to you, we have to show, like, let's assume I give you that 25 lakhs upfront, right? I have to show certain things against it to say I gave 25 lakhs and I got this in return. Our motive is not to take away your IP. Our thing is to have the right viewpoints. And as soon as you spin it off into a startup, when I get equity into your startup, I now have the equity to show someone, right? So eventually we give you all the IP, we let you take away everything so that you can be independent and take things yourself, right? But in the initial
Yeah.
period, let's assume you're not able to go past the 6 months or something like that. Worst case, then at least we are able to go back to the government and say, look, this is what we got of this 25 lakhs, right? That doesn't mean that we'll take away your IP, start a parallel startup, or we'll give it out to someone. We're not like really willing to do anything.
No, that would not
It's
work
just
at
a
all.
way for
We
us.
realize IP is what ultimately you need to own. And that's why this is a deep tech program. Maybe one way of talking about deep tech is there is some sort of defendable IP, right? You may not file a patent, but you are creating some special knowledge, right? And know-how that would be hard to replicate.
Yeah. Raghu
I
Mohit
see.
is asking a very interesting question. Right? He's saying that, deep tech sometimes takes a lot of time. So what if, they want more support or they want more time beyond the 6 months?
See, our default is going to be that at 6 months you have to get in front of some evaluation, right? And actually at 3 months and also at 6 months, right? And at that point of time, we really feel like, hey, you are doing something interesting but need more time. We may take exceptions, but by default, 6 months is where it's not like there is no additional money. It will come in a different form,
Yeah.
right? Because remember, so it will come in a different form, and that form would be basically potential startup funding.
Yeah. Mohit, in a way, we want to have a 6 month very closed setup where we know each other, but then eventually we want you to take it yourself and have strategic autonomy to define your own startup, hire your own people, and drive it the way you want it to be, right? So we just feel 6 months is the right way for us to know each other in a more concise, cohortized way, and then we give it out to you and you take it by yourself. That being said, we'll all be available for ecosystem access and other things, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll just reading. Karthik says if a provisional IP has already been filed for design, is it okay to apply to the program?
What you have done, see, our intent is to let you keep what you build, right? Certainly, what you have done before coming here, definitely that's yours, right? So, and that does not prevent you. If at all anything, it should give you additional strength in a program like this, right? If you have filed for uh, patents and such.
Yeah. So I think I'm getting a lot of IP related questions. Nadeem, you are asking that IP will be exclusively assigned to the startup spun off from the team behind the IP. Yeah, you own your own IP. We don't give away your IP to anyone else, or we don't do any deals with anyone on the IP, right? So whatever you come in with, you disclose saying this is where I am. we have a very close-knit mentoring sort of module where you work very closely with, our ecosystem to develop something on top of it. And it's not like we won't know where you came from and what you did over the thing. And what you do over the period of time belongs to you. Now, if from an exclusivity point of view, you say that I would never back a startup in the same domain, that's not the case. But we would never disclose what you built or your technology or anything you did to someone else because I will never have direct access to it, right? We will be just reviewing, saying what incremental stuff you're doing. I will never get access to your source codes or anything else you build as a part of the journey. Okay, I don't know if I'm missing out on something. Ocean is asking about equity and how much would it be taken. Ocean, there is no equity for TIR. If you're asking
We
for,
will take equity. Hopefully, as a TIR, you'll blow us away by uh, by building some amazing tech with huge potential, right? And you will spin up a company, and that's when we'll take equity, right? You'll spin up a company and pitch to our investment committee, and hopefully, we'll invest in you and take equity, right? That's
okay. Harish is asking, they have two ideas. Can they apply for two? Can they make two applications in that case?
a double-edged sword, right?
And
Which one are you committed to, right? Which one? Gun to the head. My inclination would be gun to your head, which is the one you're going to risk your next few years of your life on, right? Put that in, right? Because the moment you are uncommitted, we don't feel that committed too.
yeah. Everyone, I'm
Right?
on the last few questions. So if I missed your question in any way, please reshare. Because it could be that as things are flowing, I might have missed certain questions. So in that case, please reshare your questions in case I have, right? I'm just looking at Gopal's question, which I initially skipped for, because it was long. Gopal, you are a TRL 3 startup and you're working towards TRL 4, but you are a very young team and you need mentorship, space, ecosystem access, and all those things. Uh, so yeah, but I didn't get your question in that. Okay, at what point is there any work around? Okay, you're saying in 6 months you'll not be able to get in front of an investor? Yeah, so Raghu is saying in 6 months is a very limited time, and they're a young team with a very early stage startup idea. They'll not be in the position to sit in front of an investor in 6 months. And yeah, what could be the way out?
I honestly don't know because look, however early you are, I think what we have observed is our investment companies do not shy away from early teams, right? You might not hit all your milestones, or you might not have a 360-degree everything figured out. But if it's something truly promising and you have made sufficient progress, or you've made progress that feels like, you know, if we can back you, we'll back you, right? So quite honestly, it's very difficult to kind of talk in hypotheticals
Yeah.
about these things, right? So, uh, my what do you lose? Throw the idea in the ring, right? Throw your hat in the ring, right? At least take this as an opportunity to think through the questions we have given you, right?
Yeah, and Gopal, it's not that once you join us, in a way we leave you by yourself, and 6 months later we just push you to the IC, right? Especially the
Yeah.
program is a very high touch model. A lot of ISC professors would end up becoming a mentor, as you have said that you need mentorship and guidance, and that's one of our major differentiation which ARTPARK offers. And as you get through the process, we'll be talking to you probably every month, and we'll be defining those milestones on what's achievable along the 6 months. Our entire aim for this 6 months of cohortized mechanism is to, one, know you better, two, create certain checkpoints to understand that you're progressing across the journey. It's not like you are still at the same point in month 6 as you were in first month. Till you make consistent progress, till we are aligned on the milestones you will hit, and till you are coachable and you're going through that journey, you should be fine. And then we'll work out what's the right way to go forward, right? Right now, we want to keep it to 6 months because that's what gives us replicability and scale. But we'll figure out along the way as we go through the journey on what's that way to go forward, right? Okay. Well, I think we have done with the questions. Any parting things? If I've missed any question, please feel free to raise your hand and directly ask, or we can wrap up, Raghu, and maybe like a few parting words before we head. Raghu, you're on mute. Sorry.
Okay, looks like we are all set. Uh, Thanks everyone for a very engaging conversation. Uh, just two tips. One is get started early. One of the reasons we made a document like this available and not just fill text boxes online is because we know lots of people would like to work offline. Please do use that template. It just allows us to upload it in the backend and uh, get things populated automatically without errors. So please do not modify the templates too much. Type within the space given, etc. But you can work off offline by downloading that template once you start the application process.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. I dropped in a email for you to reach out in case you have further questions. Also, we will have one more webinar next week in case any of you missed, or you have further questions. So feel free to join that or write to us, and we'll be happy to answer most of the questions. And I look forward to entry of each one of you out here, right?
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks.